Welcome back. This morning, we're shining the spotlight on Mama Donna Adelson in her upcoming homicide trial, along with some surprising new developments in the case. So on Friday, there was a hearing that Court TV was not permitted to record. And we understand that Adelson appeared remotely as her attorneys asked the judge to grant that permission to re-depose several witnesses in the case. And this includes Donna's estranged son, Robert. That's right, there's another sibling besides Charlie and Wendy, Robert. Now, we learned that the newly discovered discovery that was disclosed by prosecutors involves wiretaps of conversations between a jailhouse informant and Donna's husband, Harvey. Now, we haven't heard much about Harvey since Donna's arrest last year.
You're making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes. Can you take it off, please, Donna? I don't want to hurt you. Please.
Just a minute.
Please.
It's getting there. Listen to me.
Yeah. I'll call.
Get over. Go home.
I will.
Donna's defense team also alleges that the state of Florida made some false allegations in an affidavit that was presented to a judge, alleging that there was a plot to harm Robert Adelson, Catherine McBanawa, remember her, and the mother of a jailhouse snitch. So this is all starting to sound like a Lifetime movie, isn't it? But no, this is real life. So is the case shifting in any way to these other family members? Let's talk about it. Still with me, attorney Tommy Pope, and want to welcome in Court TV digital content producer Lauren Silver, who's been tracking this case for us from the beginning. She reads all the motions and watches all the hearings. Lauren, good morning. All right, can I start with you, please? Tell us about these new developments. What were the big takeaways, you think, with what we weren't able to film on Friday?
Oh, what tangled webs we weave, this family.
Yes.
I've never seen anything quite like it. And behind the scenes, we had talked about whether or not Wendy Adelson would be dragged into this next. Now it's Harvey. We hadn't really talked about Harvey. He hadn't been forefront. And now we're hearing that there are these new wiretaps that the defense is just getting to listen to. They're talking about hundreds of calls. And more than that, the defense is alleging that the state recorded conversations between Harvey and a jailhouse informant. They're alleging that the state is making up conversations because apparently the state is alleging that Donna's new attorneys that were entered after there was a prior conflict of counsel have been helping her to communicate with Harvey using their own cell phones and watches. And it is during one of those conversations, allegedly, that there was a discussion about a potential plot to harm their eldest son, Robert, who is estranged from the family.
Oh, my. Lauren, you weren't kidding. This is quite a web here. Tommy Pope, so let me go to you next, please. So the defense team wants to depose two investigators that were involved in the wiretaps, as well as Robert Adelson. Now, specific to Robert, they want to know about how some new accusations could impact his testimony against his mom. Judge Everett agreed that if the defense has some new questions not previously asked or some new information, the witnesses can be deposed on that. Otherwise, he'll take the issue under consideration. We've heard Donna before on jailhouse calls with her son Charlie as she talks about going to Vietnam. I have a clip for you here, Tommy. Let's take a listen together.
The other thing I don't understand that my daughter could help me with, but we've been looking it up over and over because things change. It's extradition from Vietnam. Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
Ooh, okay. So we remember that. Tommy, going back to Robert here, the testimony he could give against his mom, what legal issues do you see potentially coming up there for him, if any?
You know, I was trying to think what incentive he would have, you know, and that he's already convicted. And I don't know, you know, different states, different laws, you know, but here in South Carolina, pretty much once you're there, with few exceptions, there's not any early parole for, you know, assistance, but, you know, in the federal system there is, and South Carolina started doing some of that, but, you know, unless he's looking out for, you know, taking care of himself and trying to figure if he can offer up something. But this thing, I never would have thought after the first trial it would have gone any further, you know, because it just seemed too collateral. But, you know, whether you want to call it the web or the rabbit hole, the more we see, the more this crowd, I mean, Mom talks about the going non-extradition. Apparently she's learned enough about the law to know where she wanted to end up. But again, this thing spreads broader and broader and broader over what I perceived initially to be, you know, kind of a straightforward family murder case. I hate to make it that mundane, but in my career, I guess that's what it is.
Right. No, you're right, Tommy. I mean, it took a while for us to see it, right? We remember it was the gangbangers on trial first. We kept hearing about the Adelsons, and now, boy, the tables have turned, haven't they? Lauren, speaking of the tables turning, okay, we know that the attorneys for Mama Donna filed that motion to ask the judge to recuse himself, which was denied. Any more about that? We really didn't hear why. Anything you could glean from Friday?
So they didn't mention it in the hearing on Friday, but in the motion. So what's interesting about this motion is I'm getting this information from, it was pulled from the docket, so it's no longer public. I don't know why it was up for the 5 minutes that I grabbed it, but I did. In that document, it does reference that they had asked the judge to recuse himself because of 3 ex parte communications and or meetings with the prosecution. It doesn't say what happened in those meetings. It does also reference a number of affidavits given to the judge that contained lies, arguably about the alleged plot to hurt Rob Adelson, Catherine McBanoa, and the jailhouse informant's mother. So I don't know if those affidavits were part of those meetings. It's not clear, but it is saying they are alleging that there were multiple ex parte communications and meetings between the prosecution and the judge, but the judge, again, refused to recuse himself.
Lauren, thank you for that. You're so awesome grabbing that motion before it was yanked down. You are the best. So let's talk a little more, Tommy, about these depositions that may be yet to come. I'm curious, if you're Harvey Adelson, how concerned should you be about saying something that could potentially be used against you and potentially lay the groundwork for charging?
You know, that was always the trickiest part, I thought, of constitutional law in the courtroom of, you know, when someone could plead the fifth, when they couldn't. You know, we see it on TV all the time, and I'm just not going to talk. But, you know, if you've got an immunity, there can be opportunities where you have to testify. And so, again, back to our tangled web, it's going to be interesting from a legal standpoint. You know, I was thinking about this whole pushback by the defense, and I don't know these attorneys as far as their strategies or the way they approach cases, but it was a little concerning what I heard you say on the lead-in, too. If they're allowing access that maybe is supposed to be limited through their phones or their smartwatches or whatever the case may be, they may be protesting even more on those issues to try to cover the fact that they probably shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. Again, in that state, it may be perfectly fine, but if there's some restrictions there and they're trying to circumvent them, then they could have their own problems. And I never wanted to ask the judge to recuse himself unless I was pretty sure he was going to be gone, because he's going to remember that. And so I think they turned up the heat for themselves, and so they probably have no choice but to keep on punching.
That's a really great point, Tommy. Yeah, that's a sticky situation to be in if you've made that motion to ask his or her honor to recuse themselves and they don't do it. It's like you got to know that you're right before you take on that legal battle, right? So Judge Everett, he is staying on this case, and what a trial it's going to be when it happens. Lauren Silver, do we have a set trial date? You know, we know it was supposed to go in a couple weeks from now. It's postponed. How about that, please?
We do. We do. The next time they're in court is June 11th for a case management hearing, barring more motions ahead of then. But the trial itself is scheduled to start August 19th, and the judge said it will not be postponed again except for good cause.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he means business. He wants to keep this trial moving. Lauren Silver, I know we're going to be talking a lot more between now and then. Everybody check out Lauren's great writing on courttv.com. We'll see you soon.